September 7th, Bellator Championship Series, San Diego. We have a lightweight title fight between Shabliy versus Nurmagomedov. Per usual, here's my unqualified fight predictions of the main card. And there's quite a few fights here, so we're gonna try to go through most of these fairly quickly until we get to the co-main and main event. Alrighty, and starting us off is going to be a middleweight fight between Neal versus Murtazaliev. Neal. This guy's a fun fighter. Was fighting at 205s for a while, came down to 185s. He looks more fit. He looks better at this weight class. A wrestler to a certain caliber, if I'm correctly, I don't know which division, but I believe he is a division champion, I believe. Might be division 3. I'm not too sure, guys. Might be his opponent when I was watching the fight against Cotton. But from what I took from that fight is that this guy's very, very explosive. Your typical American wrestler with decent wrestling and just explosive power with his 1-2. Couple takeaways from his fight with Cotton, which was a more recent fight of his. No jab. Like I mentioned, typical wrestler, explosive power. He did slow down a little bit, but always maintained that danger. Almost like a Yoel Romero, where when Yoel would tire out, yeah, you could tell he's gassed out, but damn, this guy was still explosive, right? Same thing with Neal. And you throw in his decent wrestling, this guy's pretty much a threat anywhere. Murtazaliev, your typical Russian. Very powerful once he gets both of his hands around you. However, really no striking. He's one of those Russians that also, much like I just described Neal, has, most Russians have that explosive striking. This guy doesn't. He will work you, so he will land some heavy strikes once he gets you down. He will get you to move, to scramble, to get uncomfortable, so you can start squeezing in a submission. The fact that this guy also has no striking and no way of setting up his shots, he more like waits for you to make the mistake, to overreach, to overextend, to shoot him for a takedown. I feel like this is the story of this fight. He's gonna wait for Neal to explode on him so he can shoot in and take him down. Interesting part about this matchup is that I can see it going both ways. I can see Neal keeping Murtazaliev at bay with his takedowns, since Murtazaliev does not set them up and doesn't have good striking. And for Murtazaliev, I can completely see how he can go in there, wait for Neal to explode on him, and he'll go for the takedown. I'm gonna lean more towards the latter. I feel like when it comes down to them clinching up and the wrestling, Murtazaliev can pull off a boring grappling session. Murtazaliev by decision. Next bout, we stay in the middleweight division. Jardan Newman versus Imamshafi Aliev. I couldn't find much on Aliev except for his Eagle FC fights. Now let me tell you, I was not impressed by this guy. Again, I hate saying this and I sound like a broken record machine, but unlike your typical Russian, this guy tries that style, but he's just very average at it. I don't see him with good striking. I don't even see him with great, powerful, controlling, grappling and wrestling like you usually do from a lot of these Russians. Jardan Newman, on the other hand, is a wrestler. Your American wrestler. Very freestyle kind of style to it, right? Folk style, freestyle, folk style, whatever. And he's explosive. He likes to get in there. He will exchange, and if it goes to the ground or he sees an opening, he will explode with a double. There's something about Jardan Newman's style that's very fun to watch. Again, an American wrestler that just goes in there, chain wrestles, and it's very imposing, right? And like I mentioned, versus Aliev, I just see him taking his time. He's not, I don't see him being, too imposing. Let's use that word again. So in this matchup, I do see Newman pushing the pace, getting the better of the striking, and if it goes to the grappling, they might cancel each other out. But with that being said, I see Jardan Newman winning a decision. Next bout of the evening, we go to the women's flyweight division. We have a fight between Sumiko Inaba versus Keri Melendez. Guys, for as much as we know that the women's flyweight division lacks power, these girls have brutal knockouts under their record, under their belts. This is definitely going to be fun, as Keri Melendez is not one to shy away from meeting you in the center. And same thing with Sumiko Inaba. They both meet you at the center. They both throw clean, straight pipes. They're very technical. And obviously, I mean, they have slept women. We're not talking about TKOs. They sleep their opponents. This matchup is very difficult for me to choose because they're very identical in their stand-up. It might even come down to wrestling. They might respect each other so much that they engage in clinch and wrestling. However, since most of them are stand-up wins, I'm gonna go with Inaba just because I feel she had the cleaner, tighter striking, and that left hook that she landed on her opponent that put that girl to sleep, that was a vicious, that shows signs of vicious, heavy power for that weight class. So the stand and trade, I'm leaning more towards Inaba getting the best of Melendez. And with that being said, actually, she might get a knockout in the first round. On to the next one. We go back up to middleweight. We have a fight between fan favorite Douglas Lima versus Aaron Jeffries. Aaron Jeffries, I'm not too high on him. I'm not too impressed by him. What I can say is that he's tall, he's lanky, he knows how to use his strikes and that lankiness that he has, that length, he knows how to use it well. Now I know that Jeffries has a couple good highlight TKOs and KOs. I still don't see explosive power from him. I don't see him as somebody that you should be too worried about. It's more like as the fight progresses, he kind of keeps up a certain pace. He makes it gritty, he makes you tired, he likes to clinch up and make you work. Once the fight goes on and he notices that you're tired, yeah, he will start throwing his knees, his elbows. It's actually quite a bit of a thing of beauty to witness. Despite that, like I mentioned, he does keep a very slow pace, and that's just not good when you're going up against someone like Douglas Lima, who is a veteran, has had wars, has proven himself over and over again. You got to put the pressure on Douglas. I just don't think Jeffrey has that in him. Douglas Lima on the other side, he hasn't been doing too good, right? I think he had like up to even 4-fight losing streak up to recently. Now I know he broke that streak, but you know, definitely this is the tail end of his career. What I will say is he's still dangerous, and that calf kick from the beginning of his career till now is still super dangerous. That's one of the best calf kicks I've ever seen in any MMA promotion ever. And not to mention just his resume, the people he's gone up against, his striking. One could say that his weakness is the wrestling, but I mean, this guy's still tough everywhere. I've never really seen him get destroyed. And like I mentioned, look at his resume against all the monsters he's had to confront in his career. His highlights are some of the best I've ever seen across any MMA promotion. I mean, his destruction and head kick of Ben Saunders, you know, his complete upset KO, brutal KO over Michael Venom Page. This guy has done it all, and I really enjoy watching him, and I really think that calf kick is going to come into play. This is meant for Douglas Lima to win a unanimous decision. On to the next one. We go down to the welterweights, and we have another fan-friendly fight. We have Lorenz Larkin again, that KO machine, versus Chokheli, who he himself is an explosive fighter. Let's start off with Lorenz, another veteran who's been all around the world across all promotions. He's had his high wins and he's had his lows, but the guy's a veteran and always brings the pain. I've had the honor to see him fight on the Fedor versus Bader 2 live. And let me just start by saying that I love this guy. He's from Riverside, where I was born, so I'm a Riverside guy myself. And not just that, but the guy, Lorenz Larkin's, always rocks in his hair somewhere the Riverside Bell. So mad props to Lorenz Larkin. One of the few masters of true highlights. I mean, elbows, knees, kicks, in your guard TKOs. Lorenz Larkin's is vicious. He's explosive. And like I said, he's a seasoned veteran, so he's had this approach of being very paced. He paces himself very well, but when he explodes, and he has an incredible killer instinct. His opponent, Levan Chokheli, from what I've seen, also is very explosive, and he likes to mix it up. He's the type of guy that will throw 2 straights and then follows up with a head kick out of nowhere. Explosive, fast, quick. The guy definitely bites down on his mouthpiece and goes forward with his combination. So again, this clash is for us, the fans. We win here. Someone's gonna go to sleep, someone's gonna get hurt. But Chokheli disappointed me on his last fight. Even though he started off extremely well, very dangerous, completely hurting his opponent several times, somehow it went to decision. And not just to decision, which he did win, but man, the opponent started catching up to him. How do you let something like that happen? He slowed down. That's why. He gassed himself out. Although he always maintained some sort of level of danger where he would explode here and there or counterattack and whatnot. This is where I think Lorenz Larkin is going to shine, because he can pace himself and explode. I feel his cardio is a lot better. His clinch work is a lot better. I do think that he has the cleaner striking. Although Chokheli, again, explodes forward and again, he can change his levels and come high and low. I think Lorenz Larkin can see all that coming. And Chokheli tends to swing a little more loopy. I have Lorenz Larkin's winning by TKO first or second round. Next matchup, we got a fight in the bantamweight division. Raufeon Stots versus Marcos Breno. Raufeon Stots, former Bellator bantamweight champion. I feel like this guy came into the bantamweight division and became the champion in a time where the bantamweight division is kind of weak in Bellator. So I have really mixed feelings about how good he really is. Raufeon Stots, I feel like his career highlight, was his rivalry against Danny Sabatello, who's primarily a very aggressive wrestler with a very limited tank. His perseverance, again, like in the second fight against Sabatello, the first round he got completely outworked. Not hurt, but he got outworked, but he stayed calm, and every time he was able to get back up, he will punish Danny Sabatello. He will unleash a combo head kick. He will be the one stonking him down. I do like that Raufeon Stots does bring the fight though. He's not afraid to exchange. If you take him down, I've never really seen him get pounded out. The guy will chain wrestle, he will scramble, he'll get back to his feet and throw his combinations. As for his opponent, Marcos Breno, I wasn't able to see too much, except for a lot of highlights and talks about how this guy's carrying a lot of power in his cross. Most of these highlights are from regional scenes, so I'm not too sure how good he can pull off this power against a veteran and former champ like Raufeon Stots. Now, we should never underestimate anybody, but as long as Raufeon Stots can stay away from that cross, he pretty much can ragdoll this guy and do whatever he wants. Experience, championship heart, perseverance, like I mentioned. Raufeon Stots by decision. And finally, our main event in a lightweight title fight between Usman Nurmagomedov and Alexander Shabliy. As I was doing my homework for this matchup, I noticed one thing. Both of these fighters are identical in body structure, length, and fighting style. Let's start off with Alexander Shabliy. Like I mentioned, tall, rangy. He has pretty good kickboxing. I like his combinations and the fact that he kind of slowly walks forward to make things happen. I didn't get a chance to really ever see in his current fights, some of his more recent fights, his wrestling. But again, I'll go back to his striking. The guy fights very careful, decent takedown defense. And I mean, what else to say? Great kickboxing, great 1-2s, great jab, great kicks. The guy pretty much likes to mix it up. The champion, Nurmagomedov, Usman Nurmagomedov, as I mentioned, exactly the same. The only thing, he throws a lot less combinations. As far as his wrestling, I appreciate that although of course there is wrestling in his fights, he's not like Khabib, he's not like Islam Makhachev, or all these other heavy based fighters, Russian fighters. This guy likes to stand up, and it looks like he's willing to trade. Like I mentioned though, he just keeps his volume low. I am aware that the Nurmagomedov name carries a lot of weight, and not just their name, but almost anybody that comes out of that camp, right? But from what I see, I think Shabliy has a really good chance of beating this guy. I'm solely basing this on the fact that they both have very similar quality of opponents, similar styles, but the big difference is that Shabliy stays way more active. And I see that with very similar stances, very similar strikes, the fact that Shabliy is going to throw more is going to get the decision here. The judges are going to see more activity from him, and we have a new lightweight champion.